Hello, I'm Jill Morricone, and this is Adventist Review. I'm standing here with Elder Bill Knott, Executive Editor of the Adventist Review and Adventist World magazines, and it's been another full day today, has it not?
Oh, I tell you, the pace sometimes seems like it just keeps increasing. Elder Wilson this morning at a steering committee, he said, "You know those escalators, the flat ones in the airports?" He said, "You can go a little faster than walking." He said, "It's like you got on one that's going 5 times the regular speed." Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Speaking of that, let's talk about some of the decisions that were
Yeah,
brought from the nominating committee
yeah.
to the main floor of the delegates last night. Let's start with the undersecretary and the under treasurer position.
Those are really important positions in each major branch of the church's administration. The undersecretary is really the point person for getting all of the details, including all of the organizational pieces for this meeting together. Hensley Morovin was returned as undersecretary, but got his, what some would call it, a baptism by fire last evening. He came to help share a report, and then they discovered just about the time he was walking onto the platform that they didn't have a chair available among the vice presidents because all of the others were involved with some of the caucus meetings of each division. So they turned to Hensley, and for the first time ever, he had to chair a general conference session. And let's just say it wasn't the easiest one. A lot of discussion, a lot of proposals. He handled it with humor and with grace. And in fact, by the end of the evening, my staff was texting me, he's got a following growing. And in fact, that style to be courteous and respectful just pays off all the time.
He does a great job. I've enjoyed watching him do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Absolutely. What about the under treasurer?
Under Treasurer Ray Wallen was also returned for another term. The intriguing piece about Ray is that he's not able to be physically present. He's recovering from an illness right now and is joining the proceedings on Zoom. So here are two individuals who, in key roles, who have some really remarkable things going on in their lives that they weren't expecting right now.
Talk to us a bit about the GC Auditing
Yeah.
Service and the new director for that.
Well, actually, continuing director in
Okay.
Robin Kajura, General Conference Auditing Service is the church's integrity check and to make certain that we're compliant with all of our own voted protocols and with generally established understandings in the auditing business. And it is a semi-independent entity that really focuses on making sure every unit of church organization follows its procedures and protocols, particularly with respect to finance. In fact, our General Conference treasurer, Paul Douglas, was formerly, a year ago, the head of General Conference Auditing Services and brings a unique perspective to management from that skill set. Robin Kajura, elected to be the director of the Auditing Service.
Absolutely. And let's talk a bit about the departmental directors. Now, this was brought to the main floor last night for the delegates to vote on, and we have some returning directors and several new ones. Talk to us
Yeah,
about some of those
I'm
new
going to see
ones.
if my list will come up the way it's supposed to here.
Don't you love that?
It always closes at the time when you don't
One
want it
one
to.
was ministerial, I know. We have a new
Yes.
ministerial director.
And in fact, a transition from the head of one department to the head of the other doesn't happen very often at the General Conference. But Ramon Canals, who has been the director of Sabbath School and Personal Ministries, has been voted to be the new secretary, they call it, of the General Conference Ministerial Association. We might say the director of that department, but it's technically an association. His wife, Aurora, is moving into the role of coordinating the ministry of that association for spouses. And a dynamic team, long experienced in pastoral ministry and evangelism, coming in to head that. That, of course, creates an opening in another place where he served.
In Sabbath School and Personal Ministries. So talk to us about that.
And the decision there was to invite the current associate, Jim Howard, to be the new director of Sabbath School Personal Ministries.
So talk to us about some of the other departments. We have children's ministry and youth.
Yes, two vital areas for the World Church. One of the interesting decisions yesterday was to invite Oratai Churasan as director of General Conference Children's Ministries. She's had a dynamic ministry in the Southern Asia Pacific Division, and as we learned yesterday, her husband, Saw Samuel, who has been president of that division, is coming to the General Conference also as an associate secretary. So a dynamic husband and wife team, originally from Myanmar in his case, and I believe she's from the Philippines, are coming to the General Conference. She's going to lead children's ministries. Youth ministries is going to be led by Busi Kamalo. He has been the youth director in the Southern Africa Indian Ocean Division, and he's coming in a younger individual in the mix, certainly a lot younger than I am, and really has an excellent reputation for galvanizing a very large division in its youth ministry.
Now, I know we can't reference this. We can talk more about it tomorrow. But today also the decisions are being made regarding division presidents. Are they not? It will be coming to the main floor later.
Not much after work completed here. They're going to be bringing more reports in, and throughout the day, more officer nominations. It's a fast-moving time. It's being done carefully and thoughtfully. And in fact, several individuals have asked questions. They've said, who look in on the proceedings and they see all of the discussion and sometimes even the debate, and they get worried. They think our church is falling apart because people are disagreeing. Actually, just the opposite. The history of Seventh-day Adventists has been a history of vigorous discussions at General Conference sessions. That's what actually holds the church together. It's when you don't talk about differences that people drift off into their own corners. And one of the realities we have here is very dedicated, loyal, and passionate individuals come together to talk about things. That means they're not going to agree all the time. But on balance, it's a great game. We hope everyone is respectful, that they treat everyone else with kindness, but differences don't have to divide us, and we're learning that again at this session. Individuals make points on the floor. You heard some of that happened last evening if you were watching the live feed. There are certainly differences expressed in the nominating committee. Differences about personnel and the ideology of how certain departments ought to run. Those things only strengthen the church.
Absolutely. You know, dialogue and discussion is healthy for any relationship, for any organization, and certainly for the church as well. Talk to us in our closing moments just a bit about how dialogue and discussion has to do with the walk to Emmaus.
You asked me what my favorite Bible story is. I'll tell you straight off. It's the story of the walk to Emmaus. Well, it's a wonderful story. It happens to be set at my favorite time of day in late afternoon. But more importantly, it's what we learn about the importance of dialogue and conversation and journeying with each other that I pay attention to. Think of the setting for a moment. Two discouraged, bitterly disappointed men agree to walk together about a 6-mile walk to the town of Emmaus on the very day, we know later, of Jesus' resurrection. The text says they discussed, and many scholars will say the word is debated among themselves, what the meaning of all of these events they had just experienced was. And yet, notice what happens. In the middle of their walking together, in the middle of their talking together, Jesus shows up and honors their discussion with new information, new insights with his presence can bring. I've often thought of that story from the point of view, Jesus had promised wherever 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I will be in the midst of them. And so he had made a pledge, and he showed up on the Emmaus Road to give these 2 discouraged men hope and a future, a promise that thrilled them. We know that they ran back to Jerusalem that night to inform the other disciples. That story is always a call to discussion, to spending time with each other. Don't just hang out with the people who agree with you. You're not going to learn much more. Talk with those who may see it differently, and you're going to find new energy and faith to believe what you believe and to understand what they believe. It's good for God's church when we agree to walk together.
Amen. And we know that Jesus shows up in the midst of that, which is powerful. Join us again tomorrow night for another Adventist Review.